Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Trading the Markets with Chris Bullock, aka Blasto Plas. The market took quite a hit to start out this week, right? But as Raul and as we often say on Real Vision, shakeouts like this often clear the path for stronger moves ahead. Obviously, we saw over $1.5 billion in leveraged bets wiped out, which was led by 516 million on ETH and just under $300 million on Bitcoin. So obviously there was quite some blood in the streets. But if you caught Macro Monday with Andreas and Mikkel, they discussed this sudden Monday sell-off and that it looks like a buying opportunity. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to dive into the charts, look at the market, and see what alpha we can find and what buying opportunities we're seeing here. Obviously, you've heard of Aster coming out, which we'll dive into as well. That's just ripping the market. Make sure as well, guys, if you're not in our Discord, you go ahead and join. You can take part in the conversation, take part in all the alpha sharing that we have within our great Hive Mind community. And if you're not a member of RV Connect, make sure you sign up because you do get access to Chris's entry-level crypto portfolio that kind of walks you through all of, some great trades. He's doing the work for you, so you can just sit back, relax, and just take those profits. He's up quite a bit year to date and just for the history of this portfolio. And he's not the only portfolio you're getting. You're also getting Joe Bland's entry-level equity portfolio, which is also up pretty almost 200% year to date. Might be higher than that. Don't quote me on it, but he's up quite a bit year to date also. So you have two great portfolios. And of course, you get our live TA show on Monday. And speaking of live shows, Raul is going to be back for the much anticipated, much requested Drinks AMA, Drinks with Raul, tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in. And also, Jamie Coots has an interview dropping probably any minute now, if it hasn't dropped already while we're live on air, where he goes through the Bitcoin cycle. So make sure you also check that out so you can see where we're at and what Jamie's insights tell us. Kris, happy Wednesday. How are we doing? How are you feeling about the markets today?
I'm actually feeling quite good, in fact. I know we talked about it on Monday. Everything was pretty ominous on Monday, lots of red candles, but even then I was reasonably bullish with the short to medium term outlook even. And we're seeing a continuation of that. So I wanted to highlight, I think I talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago. I'm struggling to remember which show it was on. But the September seasonality thing. And what I want to talk about here is I want to look at the Bitcoin chart here on the weekly time frame and look at the sort of the last two September, October sort of periods and how similar it is right now compared to them. And I think that the same thing is playing out. And so what we're looking at here, if we go back to September 2023, we can see that was really the bottom and things started to pick back up and reverse. But if we kind of zoom in closer, we can see that it did this thing where it, starting around the middle of September, it started to run up and then it sort of corrected, came back down, retested the moving average, and then, launched from there right around the beginning to middle of October. So we saw, a reasonable launch at the end of September and then, again, the retest. And then if we go to sort of September of last year of 2024, a very similar thing. It bottomed in the beginning of September. We had a nice couple of weeks come up, and then we had a bit of a correction again. It came back down, retested the moving average perfectly right at the end of September and launched out from there. Again, big run up. And if we look at where we are now, almost the same exact thing. We came down here, we bottomed at the beginning of September. We have two nice big candles up, a bit of a comeback down, retest perfectly on the moving average again, and we're seeing a nice big wick to the downside, which is a bullish sign that shows that there's a good amount of buying pressure at this same support level right here. That's right on the 20-week moving average, which is also right on this horizontal support level. And I suspect we're going to see something very similar where, starting this week, next week, somewhere in the next week or two, a continuation of this pattern where we get another big leg up coming into October, coming into sort of the Q4 period that we've been talking about for months now. And so far it's playing out exactly. So I think that's super interesting. I think it's also bolstered by, a couple of weeks ago, Raoul had Michael Howell on his show, on his Journeyman show. And that was a fascinating interview where they talked about just the sort of the global liquidity environment and how both of them were on the same page in terms of the business cycle extending into next year. And, we're not anywhere close to a peak type environment yet. And so I encourage people to watch this if you haven't. It's on both the Real Vision platform and on YouTube as well, on Raoul's Journeyman YouTube page. Amazing interview. These two people are the sort of global foremost experts on global liquidity, and it was great. I mean, it was just full of fascinating charts, and highly recommended. It's very like relieving, you watch it and you're like, oh, okay, I feel much better about what's going on now than maybe I did, a couple of weeks ago. And it's important because like some of the technicals, I see a lot of people saying there's technicals out there, there's technical indications that are showing maybe things do look toppy, and maybe we are right around the same time period that the market has topped in the last 2 4-year cycles, and so that's weighing on a lot of people. And I think it's important to get this macro perspective, this liquidity perspective, because it sort of counters the technicals and gives you a lot of insight that you don't see in the charts. And I think it's important to factor that into the equation. Another thing I noticed too was just looking at the Bitcoin ETF flows. We saw, it had been trending upwards all through the year, basically May, June, July, and then in August we had a net outflow month. And that sort of is perfectly reflected in the charts. Like if we go back here and look, this was the month of August, basically, these 3 weekly red candles here on the Bitcoin chart. And so that makes sense. But again, if we go back and look at the ETF inflows, we're seeing a net inflow again. And, we're seeing basically institutional money coming back into the Bitcoin space, buying Bitcoin back. And again, this is reflected in the chart as well. And I think that, this also sort of bolsters my thesis that we're going to see, future green candles in the coming quarter. And so overall, I'm generally bullish. I think too, as we go through the show, looking on the daily time frame on a lot of charts, we're seeing a ton of bottoming signals. We're seeing like DMARC 9s. We're seeing bullish divergence flags popping up on some of my indicators. We're a lot of signals that are showing seller exhaustion and momentum shifting back to the upside. So I think it's all there, and I'm generally pretty bullish on what's going on right now.
So good times ahead for us. Kris, do you have another chart that you want to get to? And I do want to remind everyone, if you have any questions you want us to take live on air, just put them in the live chat on X or on our platform. We'll get to as many as we can.
Yeah, I wanted to go through just some daily charts, on this trading alpha indicator and kind of speak to some of those bullish, changes that I'm seeing just to show, because like it's definitely happening. Like here, for example, if this is Bitcoin on the daily time frame, we're seeing this this thrust candle here, this showing there's a ton of volume coming in today. We did have a bullish divergence flag pop up here. Again, showing just there's a bid, there's money coming in. And then if we look at Ethereum, we have a nice clean DMARC 9 signal today, plus a big bullish divergence flag that's kind of hiding behind that. You can't really see it, but this is showing again seller exhaustion on Ethereum and momentum shifting back to the upside. If we look at Solana, it's got a bullish divergence flag here too, plus a big wick to the downside, which is showing these kinds of wicks to the downside sort of can signal like what's called a swing low, where you get a big flush to the downside, it quickly gets bought back up, and it signals a shift in momentum. So if we get a big sort of green candle, tomorrow that eclipses the high of this one today, that's going to be a strong momentum signal to the upside too. So again, I can go through a ton of these charts. We're seeing them kind of across the board. We have one here on SWI. We have one here on XRP. Same thing here. And it just kind of, if we go down the list, we're seeing lots of bottoming signals. So we can dig into individual charts if we have questions, but just across the board, you can see just as I'm going down the list, it's kind of happening on all of them. So again, it's good stuff right now, honestly.
Love it when things happen kind of as we expect them to. Earlier in the month,
Right.
You were kind of talking about exactly this playing out, and we saw it play out almost to a T. Kris, so credit to you for reading the charts, the tea leaves there, and really making that call for everyone. who was paying attention, right? So love to see that history is, kind of repeating itself in a good way here as we kind of set up for
Yeah.
hopefully what's a great October.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had drawn here. Let me pull it back up. I had it hidden here, but I had drawn this line right here, this polyline, and I drew this. I mean, you might remember from previous shows. I drew this all the way back on September 3rd, and I'm like, I have a pretty strong feeling this is likely how the month is going to play out, and it's. I mean, of course, it's not exact, but at the same time, it's pretty close. I knew that we were going to come up here, likely back to this sort of horizontal range, and get rejected somehow and kind of come back. I was urging sort of patience at that time. I was saying, don't get too over exuberant when we get this run out of here, because there's a decent chance it's going to get rejected. It did get rejected, but I do like, again, looking here on the daily time frame even, it hasn't come back down as low as I thought it might. To me, that's actually an incredibly bullish signal too, for it to bounce almost perfectly. Again, I didn't draw this line today. This line was drawn weeks and weeks ago, and for it to come down and perfectly bounce, right off of this 112,000 level, and big green candle today. So it's funny, you draw these lines sometimes, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. but yeah, it's perfect. And so I love the way this is playing out. I love the fact that so far, for now, it's setting a higher low. It didn't come all the way back down to this level. And I mean, again, yet more evidence for reason to be optimistic. And so I like what I'm seeing here.
And another great reason that you should be a member of RV Connect, because Kris, like he said, he drew that line on September 3rd. And obviously it didn't happen exactly as he drew it, but it's pretty damn close. And that's just another reason why you want to be following his entry-level portfolio. So Kris, we have a coin that's pretty much just taken over the talk of crypto Twitter. It's the talk of the town all over anyone who's involved in crypto, which is Aster, which I'm sure you've all seen it. I actually just input a trade idea on the RV website on Aster. So make sure you go ahead and like that, give a comment, tell me that it's going to zero, or help us pump it to the moon. But Kris, what are we seeing on Aster? Do we like it? Is it going to eat Hype's market share? What are you thinking here?
Well, it's funny. At the moment, it certainly is eating Hype's market share. In fact, I looked just this morning, and here we have the top crypto decentralized exchanges by volume and market share. And in fact, Aster is well above Hyperliquid in both market share and trading volume over the last 24 hours. But we have to keep in mind, Aster is brand new. It's very much the new shiny object on the block. It's the one that has everybody's attention. And Hyperliquid, it had its run too, when it too was the shiny object, and very much did something similar. So it's going to be interesting. It's still very early. Obviously, Aster has only been out for not even less than a week. And so it makes sense that everybody wants to go there and try it out and see if they like it. It remains to be seen if it has staying power. I'm sure it will to some extent, given it's backed by Binance and backed by CZ, and it's got a lot of money, it's got a lot of talent in it, and so I think it will be a legitimate competitor, but it remains to be seen ultimately what the market is going to settle on, or where they're going to, where that's going to play out. I think it's important to also remember that nothing bad has happened to Hype. Hype is still as it was last week or the week before. I mean, it's still doing well. It's still a very solid product. It still has sort of first mover advantage. It's maybe even a more mature product, in that it's had time to evolve and develop and be tweaked, whereas Aster is literally brand new. But obviously the price action speaks for itself. This is on the hourly time frame because it's so brand new. It's not even worth looking at it on the daily. But I think on Monday, we were looking at it, and it was right around this level here. And that proved to be the bottom. It reversed later that day and has been just ripping ever since. And it obviously looks great. So I think there's still quite a bit of room to run for Aster. It's only at around a $2 billion market cap, whereas Hype is upwards of 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there, I think. And if we're going to compare, the same, I think that, Aster could keep going for a while. But again, it's very new. So be prepared. If this is something you want to get into, it's something you're going to have to be glued to. You're going to have to be watching it on the regular, keep the chart open all the time, and just know that, it could turn on a dime, basically. So And just because it's at 2 billion now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be at Hyperliquid's market cap in a week from now either. We don't know that. So, but we can tell, like I said, just from that chart I was looking at a second ago, that it clearly is eating Hyperliquid's lunch at the moment, but that's just, again, that's new, that's enthusiasm, and it remains to be seen how long that lasts. So yeah, but it's interesting. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, like you said, I think we kind of have to see where this all settles when everything is said and done, and Aster's had a few months, if you will, of time there. But I do think it is. I don't think it's going to flip hype. I think hype is too strong. I think hype has been too organic of a thing. Had that fair launch, right?
Yep.
Don't know if I can say the same for Aster. I have to do a little more research into that. But I do think right now the upside on Aster compared to how much further down the market cap it is compared to hype is a good high risk, high reward type of play there. If you feel like you missed hype, well, you have another opportunity potentially here. So
yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't think it's necessarily too late on Aster. I mean, clearly you sort of missed getting down here at the 60, 70 cent level, but like even at $2, 236 where it is now, like you said, I still think it has a decent amount of room to go. And so yeah, and like you said, it's got more upside in the short term than obviously hype does. Even though I still think hype has quite a bit of upside to go for sure. But if there's a gap there that you can catch up with on the hype, I'm sorry, on the Aster side. So yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So speaking of hype, Shirag on the RV website wants us to take a more in-depth look at hype. Kris, what level of downside on hype would get you worried?
Well, let's look at the hype chart here first, because the hype chart actually still looks really strong. I mean, yeah, it's had a bit of a correction at the moment, but even just like zooming out on the weekly time frame, hype is still one of the better looking weekly charts there. I mean, in the space, honestly, it kind of came down and barely touched its 20-week moving average. But what I love here is the volume. The volume is still continuing to trend up, at a nice rate on the weekly level. And even just last week, it's funny, it was just last week it put in a new all-time high. So it's not even like hype is doing poorly, because we know a lot of stuff through the month of August. Like if you go back and look at Bitcoin, it's been on a downtrend through the entire month of August, whereas Hyperliquid literally put in a new all-time high just last week. So it's not like the market is fading hype by any stretch. It's doing really well objectively. So if I were to say there was a level where I'd get worried, it would probably be this, like the 39.40 level, where I have this basically support line drawn right now. That's kind of reflective of this horizontal range that we saw. So I would say if it lost the 40 cent level and started closing below that, that would give me pause. That would give me concern. But even still, hype is just so strong. They just make so much money, and they use it to buy back the token, which is going to create constant buying pressure. And it's just like, it's almost, I just don't see that happening. I really don't. So yeah, but again, if there was a level, I would say the 40 cent level is where I would start to, I guess, look a little closer and maybe decide if I wanted to cut it or not. But at the moment, I'm not really worried about it.
Fantastic. All right, let's take this question from JC on X. Kris, do we see any bottom signals on Deep? JC, you must be lurking in our Discord, because that is a topic of definite conversation, a little bit of anxiety and stress, as well as quite a few of us have Deep and are wondering when it's going to do something.
Well, in fact, we do. In fact, we have quite a strong buy signal here. So I'll kind of zoom in on this and try to decipher what we're looking at here. But we've got three different indications here. We've got, first of all, a reversal signal. Let me see if I can kind of filter some of these. We've got a reversal signal to start right here. So this is actually this is better than just like a bullish divergence kind of signal. This is saying, this is the bottom kind of thing. So we've got that. And then on top of that, we've got what is it? I got too many indicators. We've got basically a buy signal. We've got strong bullish divergence signal. We've got this up thrust arrow. I've got like 3 or 4 different indicators here signaling a bottom reversal buy. the bottom is in type signal on Deep at the moment. Now, of course, these are just indicators. Anything can happen, but when this is the good thing is there's confluence here. There's multiple indicators from independent sources, all signaling that there's seller exhaustion. There's momentum shifting back to the upside. There's sort of a reversal happening. So when you see that from multiple signals, I see that's a pretty strong signal. So hopefully it plays out that way. But I like what I'm seeing there with Deep for sure. And this is on a daily time frame, so it's generally a pretty strong signal.
Fantastic. All right, there's some hope for those of you that are holding Deep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one comes from Pierre on RV website. We talked about this coin a little bit on Monday. What do you think about Punk strategy?
That's an interesting one. I haven't looked at the price since Monday. I don't remember what was. Bijan, do you remember the symbol for it?
It's PNKSTR.
Right. Okay.
Punkster.
Yeah, I've been a little out of the loop this week, but let's take a look at this one. And it kind of got to go in on the hourly on this one too. Or hold on. I'm really curious about the upside potential with this one. I like what they're doing. It's a super novel approach. I'm not super familiar with how the tokenomics work or what's going to ultimately drive it up, other than just I know they're they buy the punks, they turn around, resell them, they take the profits and they use it to buy the token with. Clearly that's working. Clearly it's creating upside buy pressure. It's interesting to see that the volume is starting to wane a little bit. So I'm curious to see how this is going to ultimately play out. But it's a very novel strategy. It's very new. We haven't really seen anything like it, with NFTs like this, with punks especially. But also, again, it's only a week or two old, so it's still early days. I kind of said this on Monday too. It's a little bit too early to know ultimately how it's going to play out. But I do like what I'm seeing. I do like the fact that it's generally pretty organic looking price action. There's not a lot of wild swings. There's not a lot of huge wicks. So it's interesting, but I think it's definitely worth paying attention to. Probably worth taking a punt on, honestly. I'm not personally invested in it, but I do like what I'm seeing as far as the price action. But again, just know that because it's so new, it's going to be hard to sort of derive a lot of insight just from the technicals alone, because you can't really do much with hourly candles over the span of a week and a half, So we need like weeks of price action to really get a sense from a technical standpoint what it looks like. But again, I do like what I'm seeing. I think and I think it's novel, and I think it's worth looking at for sure.
Yeah, I think part of that novelty is also what's helping them, right? People that see it, haven't heard of this concept before, or kind of are buying into that whole like NFT fund adjacent type
Right.
of play there. That's what Punk strategy kind of answers. So I think the novelty is nice for now, but I will be curious to see what this coin is looking like a month from now, of once that novelty is worn off. So definitely
I can't help but wonder too.
pay attention.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder too if we're going to see competitors doing this with Fidenzas or Bored Apes or something like that too. It'll be interesting to see if we see more of these pop up because of its success. So yeah,
absolutely. I could totally see one popping up that focuses, like on pure art, right? Like you said, the Fidenzas, the squiggles, the beeples and fuck renders of the world that are buying and reselling that, or just holding it in a vault and tying it to that coin. I can absolutely see that happening.
It could be interesting too, just for the NFT market itself. It could kind of revitalize some of these projects and get attention back onto them and turn the NFT market back around too. So it'll be curious to see how that influences it as well.
Yes. Oh yes. That's a great point. Okay, so Roland has a question here, and I think this is a good question, especially for people that might be new in the cycle, that might have come in, kind of at the top and are kind of maybe still underwater or waiting to at least get back to break even. When we speak about possible 3 to 5x's, are we counting from this current price or from more depth? What are your thoughts on that, Kris? And this could go for, it doesn't have to go for, Aster or what the coins that we just talked about. Let's go for anything pretty much, like, maybe a Solana, an XRP, throw those into the mix as well.
hold on. Let's kind of look at the chart here. It's funny. That's a good question. I would say, well, I mean, you can do it either way. I get it depends. Like, obviously, it's easier to call a 3 to 5x from the low, or from the April low, for example. Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's going to be different for every token or coin or whatever. Like, looking at Bitcoin here, obviously, I don't think I see a 3 to 5x in play. I mean, sure. Again, anything's possible. But like, from where we are right now at this current level, probably a 2x at most. It's just off the top of my head. Now, obviously, if we go down to the April lows at 74, maybe we're looking at a 3x from there. So I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, again, it's however you want to look at it. Do we have a 3 to 5x from here? On some tokens, yes. On ETH, probably not, but maybe. But some of these other lower market cap ones, like SWI, for example, it's much, much lower than, say, ETH. Yeah, sure. There's a potential 3 to 5x there. Solana, probably not. Solana is already a very, very high market cap. There's like maybe a 2 to 3x from here. But again, these are all just speculative off the top of my head. It really, I think the way to look at it is to think about what its market cap is now. Because it's much, much easier to multiply something that is a $1 to $2 billion market cap than it is something that is a $100+ billion market cap. Think it's that much more money that has to come into that project for it to do those multiples. And so that's sort of how you would answer that question to yourself. So there's plenty of projects that are down at the 1, 2, 3, even 5, even 10 billion market cap that have potentially a 3 to 5x left in the tank even still today. But the higher ones, like, again, your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your Solana, your XRPs, your Doge, those aren't going to do those big multiples because they're already so high to begin with. And it's because it's going to take so much more money to kind of move the needle on that case. So that's, I think, probably the best way to look at that.
Yeah, well said. I think to add to that, Roland, I think it also depends on where you are in the cycle, like Kris was saying, what you're holding. I personally think Solana does have a 3x in it. Maybe that's more hopium than anything, right? But I definitely, listen, Sweet better have a 3 to 5x left in the tank. And so should Hype and Deep and all of these other coins that we often talk about. SPX feels like it has like a 5 to 10x left in the tank on there.
Absolutely, so, or more,
right.
For sure.
So yeah, I think it's not every coin, right? But definitely there are a few strong ones that we often talk about that absolutely have that left in the tank. All right, Kris, we're coming up on time here, but I want to take this final question from Emmanuel on the RV platform. For dry powder deployment, what is your favorite medium risk, medium reward coin right now? Is it Hype, SWI? Is there something else that I know you like, the Athena, and we were looking at Monday? What would you say for right now? If you had to pick one medium risk, medium reward coin for dry powder, what would you put it in?
I would say Hype is in that conversation. I would say, again, like you said, Athena is in that conversation. Honestly, not Pengu. I think Pengu is legit in that conversation. I know it's a meme coin, but we know it is a meme coin, but it's not. It's very much a global brand. You're investing in far more than just a meme coin, and they're doing some really innovative stuff, and they're only getting bigger. And so I think the risk is actually pretty low with Pengu, and I do think that it's got a pretty decent amount of upside. So, I mean, yeah, those are the first few that kind of roll off the tongue. There's probably a dozen more, but yeah, I think that look into those, and I think they're decent medium risk, medium reward plays.
Yeah, well said. I love that you said that, because literally just yesterday, after our show on Monday, where you called out if you're holding fart coin and even whiff, I extrapolated that to whiff as well. What are you doing? Get out of it, right?
Right.
And I did just that finally, and I put it all into Pengu. So I feel nice. Very good about that. I love that you shouted that one out. Yeah, it's not a meme coin, it's a brand coin, has a community behind it, has utility behind it. They have products behind them. Great shout out there. All right,
And
Chris.
not just like products that you buy at some little online. I mean, they have stuff at, Walmart and
Yeah.
Target and like big national retail chains. Like they're it's a legitimate brand. It's not going anywhere. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how well they've done, honestly.
Yeah, and only time will tell how well they'll do further down the line. Hopefully, it's very well for us holding Pengu. All right, Chris, we're up on time here. I want to throw it to you for any last words or anything we should consider going into the weekend before we come back on Monday's show.
I think just, kind of like I always say, sit tight. There's an outside chance we do get one more leg down. I think don't worry about it if your favorite altcoins are right on the level where you're starting to panic and freak out a little bit. Don't panic sell, please. And just, know that we've got all this, the liquidity outlook is very positive. The macro outlook is positive. The seasonality outlook is positive. Like everything is like right on the line. And so we just, kind of sit back and let it play out and don't get too antsy. Don't get chopped up, just kind of let things be. So yeah.
Yeah, well said. And if you are, like I said at the beginning of the show, if you're not in our Discord, come in because you can talk about this stuff. You can talk through it with other like minds and people in the same exact situation as you. Chances are, if you have that question, someone in our Discord has that question, or they've already been discussing it and kind of stress testing their ideas with others in the Discord that either give them the pros or the cons of what they're about to do.
Right.
We just saved somebody from swapping a whole bunch of Bitcoin into something pretty degen. So, come into the Discord, hang out, share your ideas. We'd love to have you. And again, don't forget, guys, Drinks with Raul tonight at 6 p.m. ET. He'll be sipping on some beverages. So bring some of your own, ask your questions, and make sure you tune in. And we'll see you guys next Monday live on platform and Discord for our live TA show. Until then, don't fuck this up, people. Have a great week.